I'd say over the past year, if not longer, but really the past year, I've really focused on tuning into a more cyclic way of being. And there are all kinds of cycles. I guess I mean on a more monthly basis rather than on a daily basis. So a monthly cycle rather than a daily cycle. Because our whole system is really based on the daily and weekly cycle. And there's no attention paid to the monthly cycle, which I feel is a huge misstep or a forgotten step. We get up and start our day, and we end our day in that cycle. There's, your breakfast, your work, your play maybe, and you go to sleep. And there are certain energy levels that you have during the day, obviously. You can speak to that. Usually in the afternoon, there's a dip where we might want to rest, although usually we're working. And when we go to bed, we sleep, and then we wake up and we do it again. Now, women that menstruate or have menstruated understand the monthly cycle. I'll bet not enough attention is paid to that, not enough respect and honor is placed on that, not enough of our attention. I can speak for myself and many women that I've talked to, in that, it's just something that happens. Our period happens once a month, and it's annoying, or it doesn't really bother us. It's just a thing that happens. And, that's what we think of as our menstrual cycle, is that the time that we bleed. However, our menstrual cycle is a full month. Now, outside of menstruating, there is another monthly cycle that's related to the earth, which is the lunar cycle. And so that has an effect on us as well. You can think of the word lunatic. That comes from the full moon cycle, the full moon. In that, the werewolves come out, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of crazies. My aunt works in the ER, and she says at the full moon, there's just some wild stuff that happens in there. And so, in myth and in folklore, that's talked about. But in today's society, there's not much focus placed on it. And as I said, that is it's very unfortunate, because especially now that I'm not having my menstrual cycle because I'm still breastfeeding, and it hasn't returned yet, it's been a really golden opportunity to understand the lunar cycle and the effect on my energy system. This wouldn't have been something in my consciousness when I first started my menstrual cycle, and I've had it ever since. So this has been quite an interesting time to experience this effects of the moon without my menstrual cycle and hormones kind of playing a role in that, which can change the impact of the energy of the moon. So with that background of information there, what I'm really getting at and what I want to share is that I've noticed, and anyone can do this, it's just an experiment. You don't have to track how you feel every single day, but generally there's a rhythm, a flow, and a cycle to the energy that I have, and the things, the tasks, the projects, the things that I'm capable or willing or wanting to do, how well I do them, and the time where I don't want to do projects, I don't want to do tasks, I don't want to do meetings, my head's not as clear for, coming up with ideas or solutions. It's more in the space of reflection, resting, being. And so within that lunar cycle, within a monthly cycle, even within the menstrual cycle, there are times when, okay, I have all these ideas and let's get them down and let's have meetings, let's brainstorm. And then there's doing energy. Okay, let's do it now. I got all this energy to create and explore. And then there's the next part of the cycle. This is the third week where, I got to cross all this. I'm crossing things off my to-do list. I got shit to do. I'm crossing it off. And it's really a more grounded energy than the idea realm. And then comes the period, and it's usually for me, I notice a difference. The 3 days before the new moon, I don't want to do shit. I don't. Things overwhelm me that normally wouldn't overwhelm me. I want to just relax. I don't want to do any of my business work. I want to journal. I want to meditate. I want to reflect. And I also am more in the sphere of tuning into my higher self, my core self, my spirit guides, and source, and the messages that come through at that time. They're available at all times, but at that times it's so much easier to find inner direction and, calibrate your compass of where you're going. And then when the new moon comes to pass, then it's like, all right, there's a lifting, there's a change towards doing again. And why is this important? Why do I want to share this with you? Well, what I found is that when I respect this cycle, when I learn more about this cycle and how it influences my life now, perhaps if you're menstruating a woman, then you may follow your menstrual cycle more than the moon cycle, because that would be a little bit more powerful since it's within you and your hormones are fluctuating in a cyclical way as well. If you're on birth control, maybe not as much because you're not actually having a menstrual cycle. So maybe the moon might have more relevance for you. I'm not sure. I can't really speak to that because that's not my experience. However, if we can look at our monthly cycle, whatever that may be for us, and just examine our energy level. What tasks do we want to do? And it's important because in our daily lives, when we're out there in the outer world, that world wants us to be productive as much as possible at all times. When you go to work, you're expected to excel, to do your job consistently and effectively, and all those other sort of more masculine traits. That's what's expected of you. But in reality, at certain times of the month, you're better able to do that within the first part of your cycle, whereas the second part of your cycle, you're finishing things off, and then you're going into inner winter. Hibernation is really, if you can think of hibernation, that's it. It's rest and reflection. It's going over what's happened in the past month and seeing what are the next steps in the next cycle. And so if we don't take that time for rest and reflection, we become very overwhelmed. And this is the key. It happened to me yesterday. I was overwhelmed, and a situation happened, and I reacted. I was overwhelmed, and it was an inner child reaction. It wasn't my adult self, my core self, my true self, my higher self, whatever you want to call it, because that place comes from a place of compassion and understanding and love for myself and for everything. But it was an inner child reaction of like, because I couldn't control the situation, I couldn't fix the situation, it was out of my control, this little inner child, or an aspect of that inner child, started blaming. Oh, fuck the system, it's such a piece of shit, like, it should be like this and not like that, because it's not serving my needs how I want them to be served right now, and it's everybody else's fault, and I can't fix it. I mean, that was really when I had to take a moment, because I was feeling very emotional and wanted to cry. So, I was at work and I went into the bathroom, because I knew, I was like, I have to feel this. I have to let this come out and explore it, or it's gonna affect the rest of my day and maybe even the days to come. So I went in the bathroom and I let the tears come, and I took a moment, as long as I needed for my eyes to clear up and everything. I let the emotions, I closed my eyes, I let the tears come. I went into my body and just, what was I feeling? I had a tightness, a constriction in my throat. I had, that was kind of the primarily thing, like tension all around my throat and jaw. And then I just tried to notice my feet on the ground, my hands. And that was a really effective way to ground you in the moment and take you out of that fight or flight freeze response. And so as I did that and I was able to calm down and come into the present moment, I was able to see that, that aspect of myself that I knew was there, but I never saw it so clearly. This was the biggest time where I saw this protector of, this is out of my control. And my protector comes in and blames things because I feel angry and I feel an unfairness and injustice. So that protector comes in and blames, so that it's not my fault because I can't fix it. It's not my fault because I can't control it. Let's blame somebody else. And that's not productive either, because it's just taking that anger that I have at myself and putting it on someone else, instead of accepting the anger, that it's okay to have anger, and it doesn't have to be directed at anyone. It can just be felt. It can just be acknowledged as a messenger, as, yeah, this really sucks. It's unfair. I feel angry. And I'm just going to let it pass. I'm going to feel it until I don't feel it. And it's okay. And just that acknowledgement, instead of stuffing it down, instead of what I would have done was just stuff down those tears, sat there and said, no, I'm good, fuck it, I'm pissed. Or just like, I'm pissed, and take it out on colleagues or people that I'm close to in relationship, my mom or, my stepdad. I would have taken it out on them because I didn't let it go. I didn't feel it. I stuffed it down. And that stuffing that energy down rather than releasing it, expressing it, and experiencing it, that overflows and leaks out into your relationship and causes conflict and separation. And so this all arose because I was unable to rest and reflect like I needed. I was unable to meet that need because we live in a society that doesn't support that. And so there's not much you can do about that. I try to work with the cycle. I try to not plan meetings for those 3 days. I try not to do a lot of extra work that can be saved for later. Just do the minimal that is required of you on those days. And don't get upset with yourself for not being productive, because you understand this is a time of rest. It's supposed to be a time of rest. And if I lean into that, if I do the best I can to rest as much as possible, and know there's also the knowing that in a few days I'll be able to better navigate our production-driven society. Then there's a little bit of compassion and gratitude and acceptance, and your body can relax instead of go into a panic of like, oh my God, I need to get this done. I'm not good enough. Why am I so tired? I need more energy. You don't need more energy. You just need to rest. So that is my drive to work thoughts. And I hope that you got something from this and can relate to this. If this has resonated with you at all, I would love to hear your own experience with cycles, or how sometimes you just don't feel like being productive, and maybe what are those emotions that come with that? Do you berate yourself? Do you give yourself enough time for rest when it's required? And can you find where those periods of rest should turn up in your life so that you can respect them and honor them and find more harmony within your life? Have a good day.